I find honesty fascinating. We should always be honest. The economists have learned that we will cheat up to a level that allows us to retain our self-image as reasonably honest individuals. So what that means is we're going to be able to do a little white lie, or we may, we may speed, and it varies person to person, so it becomes real complicated. In an online class of international students I had, everything was going along really well until right at the end, at the final group of discussion posts, actually, and a student had posted an identical post to what another student had done. So I was floored. I didn't know what to do, but I just couldn't believe I had to do what I had to do. And I failed the student for the posting. I reported it to the dean, and that was pretty much the end of it. The student negotiated or attempted to negotiate with me, but that wasn't successful. But I did take away from it that if I teach another class, that I was going to, right at the beginning, make sure there was no ambiguity, that I was going to expect no plagiarism and honest behavior. And so that was what I planned to do. Being dishonest manifests in many ways, and in fact, there's a behavioral economist named Dan Ariely who's got a Netflix documentary that's called The Honest Truth About Dishonesty that outlines all the different ways we can be dishonest. So it's pretty interesting. And he has come up with the fudge factor theory. And in his experiments with subjects, he's done quite a few, and they're also very interesting. He's found that 70% of people are willing to cheat. So that's a high number. I don't think we're really surprised by that. We see it, we deal with it constantly in our lives with our friends, families, relatives, co-workers. It's just part of being within a culture. But it's something that in our cross-cultural studies and our leadership classes and research, we really don't address very much. So that's why I find this kind of fascinating and interesting, because, well, we don't want to really talk about being dishonest, even though 70% of us are doing it. So so the next class comes up, and I start out the class, and I really lay it on pretty thick and heavy. I say, you're going to see the Air Force Honor Code. I will not lie, cheat, or steal, nor tolerate those among us who do. You're going to read the American Society for Quality's Code of Conduct, and you're going to understand what it means to generate your own work and record data accurately. And you're going to reread our syllabus specifically about plagiarism and make sure you have a clear understanding of that. You're going to synthesize those 3 readings, write it to me, and then give me a pledge statement that you get it for this class. Well, 6 out of 18 of the students plagiarized that assignment. I was flabbergasted. I was ready to go into the class with guns a-blazing and really lay it out. But I had to recognize that this is cultural. So what I did instead was, after the second class, I called the 6 people together that were involved in that, and just started, hey, we have to have a discussion here. I really don't understand what you're doing. I mean, this is an assignment about honesty, and you're dishonest. So how can this, are you not getting the point here? So that went pretty well. Things got better, maybe not to the level that I would think we would typically expect in our Western culture, but it was an improvement. At the global cross-cultural leadership level, there are increasing reports of scandals, classic cases of tyrants using deception. There was another Wall Street Journal article recently that was real similar. It was make or break exams draw best and brightest cheaters. Iraqi students scam finals with tiny cameras and sneaker transmitters. So students are desperate to do well to improve their chances of winning one of the few positions available in a job market unable to absorb the 400,000 young people who enter it each year. So here's that this need to compete, and it's pretty pretty common, and they're going to extreme lengths because there's so few positions. So they're willing to really give up a lot of integrity, really, and it's common. So at some point, it doesn't even really feel like they're being immoral in their behavior because everybody's doing it, and that's what manifests here. We'll talk a little bit about leadership. Leaders emerge from the national cultural, so we're comfortable in our own tribe, and leaders set those norms and kind of reflect what's going on in that tribe. We go into another tribe and we have to slow things down and understand whether or not we can operate in their environment as well. If we can how much we can trust them, make sure our communication's the same, and it takes some time to get that stuff set up. So the environment is even greater and requires even more time. And some of the players in that environment, of how they utilize deception and dishonesty, and that's honestly how scandals emerge. So back to the article, it says some of the world's most creative cheaters are showing up in Iraqi exam halls this summer armed with gadgets, ruses, and high school tests that will help determine their futures. Definition of leadership is a moral relationship between people based on trust, obligation, emotion, and some shared vision of the good. So if we consider that leaders are actually in a position that their moral expectations are magnified over the other organization, then that explains a lot. That also is part of the recipe for a scandal. So back to that. Is corrupt, Parliament is corrupt, state offices are corrupt. There is no accountability for officials, so how can you hold students responsible? That's a good point. So we juxtapose those students and followers between each other, and the leaders have this, there's a lot of desire to be a leader. There's a lot of get a coveted position, but at the same point, that's a real high self-interest type of draw to fill those coveted positions. But even Plato recognized that the leader's number one interest is the good of the people that follow them. So you also have that dimension that's got a tension built into it as well between leaders and followers. I guess I'm going to close here on just it is apparent that there are significant differences, and developing global leaders whose practices differ from our Western cultural expectations does require some explicit attention and intervention to ensure honest behavior is adequately practiced. There's two recent issues of Business Ethics Quarterly. The January and July issues this year are dedicated to building up a philosophy of leadership ethics that is interestingly hasn't been very well explored by philosophers. They explore business ethics in general, but to focus on the actual elements that are related to leadership is kind of a new area for them. So again, the future of global leadership really rests on our moral character development. It's a core area for our cultural intelligence and strategic development attention, but I don't think it really gets as much attention as it deserves. Thank you for your time.